Hey, welcome back to the How to Podcast series. This is Dave with you. Hope you're doing well. Talk about naming your podcast. I know you're gonna give your podcast the best name ever, and you're like, but I want it to just be like something cool, like something that explains my show. I know that all the gurus are telling me it's got to have keywords in it. It's got to be this. It's got to be that. Can't have the word the in it. Can't have the word podcast in it because that's terrible. And there's all these opinions. They're all opinions. And you know what? Really, the only opinion that matters is yours and your audience's. There are best practices. There are great suggestions, but there's no rules. You can call your podcast whatever the heck you want to call it, and nobody can tell you to do otherwise because it's your show and you can do whatever the heck you want. So what I'm going to talk about today about naming your show and some things to keep in mind, some good things to consider, some things that you should probably, have in your mind when you're settling on the name of your show, or if you're going to rebrand your show, what you're going to call the podcast. Okay. These are just some general suggestions and guidelines. No rules, because there are none. And you can do whatever you want, no matter what that guru tells you. If you don't agree with what they tell you, then do what you want, because it's only their opinion. There are no facts. There's nothing behind what they're telling you that's really, truly true. So please just do what you want with your own show. It's up to you. Theo Vaughn has the podcast This Weekend with Theo Vaughn, and he was asked by his guest on how he came up with the name of his show. And if you think about it, This Weekend with Theo Vaughn, what is that about? Right? Like, that's not well, Theo Vaughn is searchable, but would you be able to identify the podcast and what it's about just by This Weekend with Theo Vaughn? Well, he explains how he landed on that name for his show in one of his recent interviews, and it's pretty eye-opening. Here's Theo.
That's what this is called, This Past Weekend? Yeah. How'd you come up with that?
Because I just started on a Monday. To be honest, I didn't really.
That's good.
Yeah, right? Okay, so that wasn't a meeting. That wasn't people getting together around a boardroom table and going through searchable keywords and SEO, all of the things that the gurus tell you have to do. Come on. He just picked it because it made sense in the moment, and it works. A lot to do because of his name and who he is, granted, but his podcast doesn't explain anything about what that show is, and none of what's going to happen for the audience. There's no avatar. There's no nothing. So keep that in mind. Now, I'll counterbalance that comment with the idea that famous people have a pass in podcasting. They can do whatever they want. Doesn't really matter because they're famous. So a lot of the guidelines that you and I would need to incorporate into our show to be found in a busy world of podcasting, they don't need to follow those guidelines because they're famous. And you and I, not so much. So we're going to have to do some things to have something searchable. That's why I picked the How to Podcast series, because it has the word how to podcast. Those three words, people are typing them into Google, people are typing them into Apple and Spotify and YouTube, and people are finding me. So it's working. So I know it works. Because nobody knows who Dave is. This Weekend with Dave Campbell, I can guarantee you that nobody would ever find that show, because who cares, right? Who cares about my weekend? Nobody. So I'm not famous. So yeah. So Theo has some leeway that you and I don't have. But let's keep in mind some things around the name of our show that we probably should consider. Again, no rules, But we should consider these things as we go through the process of figuring out the name of our podcast. Why does the name of our podcast matter? Like, really? Like, what? Can I just do whatever I want? Yeah, you could do anything you want. But why does it matter to have a good name for your show? Having something that's search friendly as a podcast name can help you to bring in new listeners potentially for your show. They'll find your show quicker in directories and search engines if your podcast name has something searchable in the title. It does boost your visibility. It helps to clarify what your content's about, all of which Theo Von doesn't do any of those things, again, because he's famous. It gives your potential subscribers a compelling reason to click, to check it out. And in a crowded podcasting landscape, like with all these different shows, your title can be the difference between being discovered and getting lost in the shuffle. It is something that, it's going to set you apart and bring more people to you by having a good title for your show. What are some best practices for naming your podcast? First, be clear and descriptive. When you name your show, here's a suggestion. Again, not a rule. Use words and phrases your ideal listeners might search for in their terminology and as they would approach finding your show, not as your knowledge, your expertise, and your lingo, but in their lingo and how they would type it in, right? So you might have to adjust it a little bit for someone who knows less about your topic than you do. So don't go with these really fancy acronyms or inside baseball talk. Make it super straightforward. This is the how-to podcast series. Can't get much more straightforward than that. It's it's in the name. So pick something that is something that people would be typing in on their own without getting prompted. It should signal the subject, the theme, or the niche. For example, I have a show called The Canadian Podcaster, based around my Canadian Podcaster magazine at canadianpodcaster.com. So, Canadian Podcaster. No, come on, what's that about? I don't know. Gardening? No, Canadian Podcaster. It's a podcast for Canadian podcasters. It's in the name. So be clear and descriptive and in the language of your potential viewer listener. That's going to make you easier to find because it's going to be from a listener-centric point of view. That's what you want to do. Put it in their terminology, not yours. Be clear, be descriptive. As well, include relevant keywords where you can. Research some common terms in your category, including target keywords like parenting or startup or true crime or author interviews or moms, dads, health, fitness, weight loss, all of these things. These will help the algorithms, those computers behind the scenes, and humans both, to understand your show's focus and library. If the algorithm doesn't know what to do with your show and listeners can't find you, it's going to be harder to get in front of your ideal audience. So make your keywords relevant. Make sure you're using things that are in today's language, in today's news, in today's thoughts and conversations. Your show needs an element of that in the name of your show. Keep your podcast title simple and memorable. Having a short, easy to spell title is easier to remember and easier to search for. I host a show, another one, called Dad Space. Okay, Dad Space. It's a podcast for dads by dads. It's Dad Space. So my website, dadspace.ca. Why not dadspace.com? Because dadspace.com was about $18,000 to buy. No. My wife said no. So I bought dadspace.ca because I live in Canada. No problem. I could afford that one. It was a lot better than $18,000. But it's Dadspace. It's easy to say, easy to remember. You don't even need to write it down. It's pretty straightforward. It's a podcast for dads called Dadspace. A podcast for dads by dads. Keep your name of your show simple and memorable. Avoid complicated words. Avoid putting numbers inside of a word. That's really weird. Weird spelling. Anything that makes people go, I think it's this, maybe that. I'm not really sure. The moment you hear that, it might be the wrong name for your show. Make it simple, easy, uncomplicated. Don't do any weird misspellings or overly long titles. Okay? Keep that in mind. Keep it simple and memorable. And also, check the podcast directories to see if anybody else has the same name that you're thinking of using. There's several reasons why you should check to see if your name's been chosen already by someone else. Partly because of you don't want to get confused with another show. You want to make it easy for your audience to go, is it this one? Or is it this one? It's the Mindset Minute. Well, is it the Mindset Minute with Dave? Is it the Mindset Minute with Sally? Is it the Mindset Minute? Like there's multiples. So which one is it? All I know is the name of the show, but I don't know which one of these 10 Mindset Minute podcasts it is the right one. So if you're confusing people, it's going to be hard to convince them to stay. They don't know if they're picking the right one. Make sure that your podcast name is free and available. You can take someone else's show name, but why would you? Like, be creative. I know that there's millions of podcasts. There's a lot of podcasts that started years ago and never continued. Can you use that name? Is it trademarked? Like, there's a bunch of different things to consider. I would say do a search, do a search of domains. So a .com, .ca, .co, whatever. Search up to see if the name of the website domain is available. That's a good indicator. But also then search on Apple, YouTube, Spotify, and just make sure. You don't want to confuse your show with a terrible show with a bad reputation. And you want to make it easy for people to find you. So be creative. There's some things you can do to make your show different. Do that. But check the directories. Make sure that it's cool that you can use that name. Okay? And also think long term when picking the name of your show. Very, very important. You're going to hear podcast gurus who say it. You can just rebrand your show as often as you want. I don't think that's a smart thing to do. You can rebrand your show when you want to, but doing it often is confusing, especially if you don't change your podcast and you just continue changing the name of your show over time. You start with podcast name A, and then you go to B, and then you go to C, and you end up at Z at the end of it, and you're like, you've changed the name of your podcast many, many times over and over and over. And your audience is like, what is going on here? Just think long term. Pick a name of your show that you love, that you can invest in over time. There's a thing in real estate called equity. Equity is built up when you buy a house for a certain dollar amount, you get a mortgage, you pay the mortgage down, but the house goes up in value at the same time, and that gap between what you owe and what the house is worth is called equity. For us in podcasting, we need podcast equity, that difference. And that comes over time, building up your name, building up a website presence, creating many episodes under that one title, under that one podcast title. Over time, that's your reward. When you change the name of your show every 10 episodes because you're bored, it doesn't help you with your search because your show changes so often. Pick a name that has room for your content to evolve over time. And avoid niche references or trends that might become outdated over time. So what's hot today on TikTok might not be hot 6 months from now, and your podcast will go out of date faster than old produce. So pick something that's got some length to it. It's going to be around for a while, and it's going to make sense in the future. That's really going to help your show to be better. What should we not do when naming our show? Again, just suggestions. These aren't rules, but some things to consider. This is kind of a little bonus add-on. What not to do when picking the name of your show. When picking the name of your podcast, don't overuse puns, jargon, and inside jokes. Clever wordplay that can be fun, but if your listeners don't get it, they'll skip your show. Avoid generic titles like The Podcast Show or Conversations. They're so broad, they doesn't really draw people in because it's just too general. They're almost impossible to find and search. Skip unusual spellings and special characters. We kind of talked about this. Creative spelling with too many symbols, hashtags, the and sign, all that stuff, right? Make your show really hard to search if people aren't using it exactly the way it's written for the name of your show. So don't make it difficult. Skip those unusual spellings. And don't copy or mimic popular shows. So it can't be the Dave Campbell Experience. You know what I mean? That's not going to work. And don't ignore international or cultural differences. We're a global entity as podcasters. We're not just in your state, city, province, country. People are listening to you around the globe. Make sure that your chosen name won't mean something unintended in another country or be hard for non-native speakers to pronounce as well. Curse words in the name of your show. I've had people wanting to come on to my podcast to talk about their show, but they've got blatant curse words in the name of their podcast. My show's clean. That's my decision. I want a clean show because I want it to reach more people. And I can't have them on the show and talk about their podcast if they got a big F word in the middle of their podcast title or other curse words. So I don't have them on. I just decline them because of the name of their show. The name of your show will keep you out of certain countries, will also keep you out of some places where opportunity could be there for you had you had a clean title for your podcast. So that's your choice. You can do whatever you want with your show, but there could be limitations. For me, it would be the same as buying a car from somebody who smoked. If I get into a car to buy a used car and the previous owner was a smoker, I'm out of that car in 10 seconds. I just can't do it. I can't sit in a car that's been smoked in. Between my asthma and all that other stuff, it's just my personal choice. It could be the nicest car in the world, but no. And so that's how I do my show. You do you, do whatever you want on your show. These are just guidelines. They're not rules. But they have impact to you, the potential for your show. Just keep it in mind. The bottom line, a clear, keyword-rich, and original podcast name not only helps you get found, it signals that your show is professional. Not like starchy professional, but it's worth listening to and makes your show more inviting to first-time listeners. Take time to do it right. Your podcast discoverability depends on it. This is your opportunity to be found. Having a good podcast name is your decision. And yes, you can change it in the future, but that equity piece comes into play when you pick a name and stick with it over a period of time, create great content that supports the title of your show, and you get out there and talk about it, be a guest, be interviewed, get your podcast known by creating great content. If you have any questions about naming your show, you're like, I got some ideas, but I like to run it by Dave, then reach out to me, howtopodcast.ca. Love to help you. I love talking through podcast names. It's so much fun. So let's do this together. howtopodcast.ca. My calendar's right there. Anytime, jump in. Let's do this together. I'd love to help you. Thanks for being here. Get out there, get that podcast going. And again, if you need help, always willing to help. Thanks for being here. So I get asked quite often, usually at the end of a podcast, like right now, Dave, how can we help you? Like, how can we, as a listener, like, support the show? Can we come rake your leaves? Can we cut the grass? Shovel the snow? Watch your dog? Help you move? What can we do? Clean your dishes? Oh, that'd be interesting. Well, if you can't do that because, you're in Poland, maybe you can help us by supporting us with our Buy Me a Coffee. It's right there on our website. And, it just will help us to, A, stay fueled because, we drink a lot of coffee around here. And it helps the show. So if you want to help us, it's out of the goodness of your heart. I can tell you that listening to the podcast to this point, you've already helped us so much. But I do have people saying, Dave, I'd love to give back something small, even just to the show. Buy Me a Coffee link is on our website at howtopodcast.ca. And you can support the show that way. It would mean a lot to have you on our team supporting what we do here. If you find value in the show, then that's great. Share the show, tell somebody about it. And when somebody says, Dave, I want to start a podcast, who should I check out? Oh, you should go check out the How to Podcast series because of all the great co-hosts and all the things that happen here, the meetups, everything. And I would appreciate that. And then fill our cup once in a while if you can. But again, thank you so much for being here and supporting the How to Podcast series. Take care. Talk soon.